Welcome to Rise with Denzel Washington. Ladies and gentlemen, you see, the most dangerous woman in the room isn't the loudest one. She's not the one shouting for attention, not the one trying to prove something to the world. No, she's the one sitting in the corner, silent, steady, still. While everybody else is making noise, she's listening. While others are panicking, she's praying. While the world is moving fast, she's standing firm. That woman is not quiet because she's weak. She's quiet because she knows who her strength comes from. That kind of woman doesn't flinch when storms come. She's seen them before. She's walked through fire and came out with peace in her spirit. She's fought battles no one knows about. She's cried tears no one ever saw, and still she's standing, not because she had it easy, not because life treated her kindly, but because she placed her trust in something greater than herself. She learned a long time ago that trust in God is not just a feeling. It's a position, it's a decision, it's a lifestyle. You don't trust God because things are good. You trust Him because He's good. That's the difference. That's why she doesn't need to speak on everything. Her confidence isn't built on controlling the situation. It's built on the knowledge that her life is in the hands of the one who never fails. And when you trust like that, really trust, it changes how you carry yourself. You don't walk around looking for approval. You don't beg people to understand you. You don't fight battles that don't belong to you. You just keep showing up quietly, consistently, faithfully, and that's what makes her dangerous. Because while others are reacting, she's resting. While others are running in fear, she's walking in faith. That kind of woman doesn't argue with fools. She doesn't need to clap back at every insult. Her identity doesn't come from people. It comes from purpose. Her heart isn't tied to compliments or criticism. She moves to the rhythm of obedience. She walks in alignment, not applause. And when she opens her mouth, when she finally does speak, people listen. Because her words are not cheap. They carry weight. They come from a place of prayer, from a place of wisdom, from a place of power. You can't shake a woman like that. You can't intimidate her. You can't buy her silence or break her spirit. Because her anchor is deep, her roots are strong, her faith is tested, and her resolve is fireproof. She's been through too much to be shaken by small things. She's lost things and survived. She's been overlooked and still risen. She's been broken but not destroyed, and all of that. That's where her silence comes from. That's where her peace is born. She doesn't talk about every storm because she knows who calms them. She doesn't fear the future because she knows who holds it. She doesn't worry about her enemies because she knows they can't stop what God has ordained. So she walks tall, not because she has no fear, but because she knows where to take it. She's learned that true strength isn't loud, it's secure. And don't be mistaken. Her silence is not submission to defeat. It's a sign of victory. It's a woman who knows she doesn't have to fight every battle because the battle is already won. It's a woman who understands that stillness isn't weakness, it's strategy. That waiting isn't wasting, it's warfare. That praying isn't passive, it's powerful. That woman is dangerous, not because she's aggressive, but because she's anointed. Not because she's forceful, but because she's focused. She's dangerous because she understands that when God is for her, nothing and no one can stand against her. She's dangerous because she's not afraid to let God lead. She's dangerous because her trust is not seasonal, it's solid. And in a world that's chasing influence, chasing recognition, chasing noise, she's chasing purpose. And she knows deep in her soul that God will make a way, that her silence speaks louder than her defense, that her stillness is a sign of supernatural strength, that when she gets low in prayer, heaven stands up on her behalf. That's the kind of woman the enemy fears, the kind of woman the world can't figure out, the kind of woman that changes everything without saying a word. True strength isn't loud, it's rooted in quiet trust. It's not in the shouting, the striving, or the scrambling to be seen. It's found in the woman who has learned to sit still when the world expects her to break. The one who doesn't need to raise her voice to be heard, because she's already aligned with a voice far greater than her own. The world teaches us that to be strong, we must be loud, bold in every room, fierce in every conversation. But real strength, the kind that cannot be shaken, isn't built in noise. It's cultivated in quiet trust. It's found in the spaces where no one's watching, where the spotlight fades, and the only audience is God. This kind of woman knows that her power doesn't come from the approval of others. It doesn't come from how many people clap for her or stand beside her. Her strength was born in private, on her knees in moments of desperation, in the midnight hours of silent prayers, in the deep spaces of surrender where trust became her language. She's learned to rely on the presence of God, not the opinions of man. While others are trying to control outcomes, manipulate timelines, and fight battles with their words, she waits. She doesn't wait out of fear, she waits out of trust. She waits because she's been here before, and God has never failed her. There's a discipline in her stillness, a power in her pause. She's not passive, she's deliberate. She doesn't need to chase what's already promised. She doesn't need to force what God has already spoken. Her strength is in her refusal to panic when the plan isn't clear. She knows the one who makes a way in the wilderness. She trusts the one who calls her by name and orders her steps even when the road looks uncertain. It's in that trust that her strength is built. She's unbothered by noise because her spirit is anchored in truth. She's not rushing because she knows God doesn't move according to human deadlines. She's strong not because she's never been broken, but because she's healed in places people can't see. Her scars have stories that never made it to the public, but they're proof of victories fought in silence. She's endured storms that could have silenced her permanently, but instead they shaped her, refined her, made her stronger. Not the kind of strength that brags or bullies, but the kind that stands when everything says she should fall. That kind of strength is quiet, not because it has nothing to say, but because it knows when to speak. It waits on God's timing, not people's expectations. She doesn't need to declare her strength. She walks in it. It's in her eyes, in the way she carries herself, in the peace that surrounds her when things go wrong. That peace didn't come cheaply. It was built in trust, a trust that comes from seeing God provide when there was nothing left, from seeing Him show up when everyone else walked away, from learning that His silence is not absence and His delays are not denial. That trust taught her how to hold her head high even when her heart was breaking, how to walk with grace when everything inside her wanted to scream, how to choose peace when chaos was at her door. People don't understand how she's still standing, how she's not bitter, not broken, not shouting back. But she doesn't live for their understanding. She lives by faith. Her strength is not on display for applause. It's anchored in her relationship with the one who holds her together. She knows who she is not because the world told her, but because God confirmed it in silence. In the places where no one else could affirm her, He did. In the battles where no one else could fight for her, He did. That's why she doesn't need to be loud, because she's backed by a power that never fails. She's not moved by every opinion, every wave of doubt, or every word spoken against her. She knows how to guard her peace. She knows how to protect her spirit, and that makes her dangerous, not in the world's definition of power, but in heaven's. Because a woman who trusts God without needing to prove anything to anyone is unstoppable. She doesn't waste energy explaining herself or convincing others of her worth. She lets her life speak. She lets her trust in God be the evidence of her strength. She's built her foundation on a rock, not on feelings or fleeting affirmations. Her silence is not emptiness. It's filled with the presence of God. Her trust is not weakness. It's a weapon. Her stillness is not surrender to defeat, it's a stand of faith in the middle of the storm. A woman of prayer doesn't need to prove herself publicly because her validation doesn't come from applause, attention, or affirmation from others. She knows who she is before anyone tries to define her. She's not looking for status in rooms filled with noise. She's found her identity in quiet moments with God. Her voice carries authority not because she's loud, but because she's aligned. The world may overlook her because she doesn't speak often, but when she does, something shifts. Not because she's trying to impress, but because her words come from a deeper place, a place of consecration, a place of encounter, a place of knowing. She's walked through fire that should have burned her. She's stood in silence when others questioned her. She's chosen peace over popularity, and that choice isn't always easy. But her prayer life taught her to rise above what others say and trust what God has said. She doesn't live for the eyes of the crowd. She lives for the presence of the Creator, and in that secret place she's built something far more powerful than a reputation. She's built relationship, not the kind that wavers with emotions, but the kind that stands through storms. Her prayer closet is her war room. That's where she weeps, where she wars, where she waits. That's where her boldness is formed. That's where her battles are fought and won before anyone sees the outcome. She's learned that prayer is not a ritual. It's her lifeline. When the enemy comes against her, she doesn't retaliate with venom or vengeance. She kneels, she intercedes, she surrenders, and in that surrender she finds victory. Her power doesn't lie in her volume, it lies in her vision, and her vision has been shaped by what she's seen in the spirit, not what she's experienced in the natural. She has nothing to prove because she knows she's already approved. She doesn't chase after recognition because she's already known in heaven. She doesn't speak to be praised, she speaks to bring purpose. Every word she says is measured, intentional, covered in grace and discernment. She's not moved by compliments or criticism. She's grounded in something deeper. That's why her silence is so loud. That's why her presence speaks even when her mouth is closed. She doesn't need to be in the spotlight to shine. She carries the light of God within her, and that light cannot be dimmed. Others may misjudge her silence as weakness, but it's in that silence that her spirit roars, because prayer has trained her not to react, but to respond. And when she responds, it's not flesh leading, it's wisdom. She's been shaped by the Word, not the world, molded by truth, not trends. Her posture is one of peace, but her presence carries the weight of someone who has been with God. You can feel it when she walks into the room. There's something about her that speaks without words, a calm authority, a divine confidence. She's learned the difference between ambition and assignment. While others are running after platforms, she's walking in purpose. She doesn't perform, she ministers. Her life is not a show, it's a testimony. Her confidence doesn't come from success, it comes from surrender. She doesn't need to climb ladders built by people because she's already standing on the promises of God. That's why she can be still. That's why she doesn't rush to defend herself when misunderstood. Because she knows God is her defender, her promoter, her vindicator. Her heart beats with compassion, but her spirit is built for battle. Not the kind of battle that makes headlines, but the kind that wins generational freedom. The kind of battle that births healing. The kind that doesn't seek revenge, but prays for restoration. She's not trying to dominate, she's trying to deliver, not trying to control, but to cover. And she covers others in prayer, even those who have wronged her. That's strength. That's what makes her different, what makes her dangerous. She's not desperate for affirmation because she's anchored in truth. Her prayer life gives her insight others can't see, gives her discernment others don't understand. She speaks when the Spirit leads, and when she's silent, it's not out of fear, it's out of faith. Faith that God is handling what she doesn't need to touch. Faith that waiting on God is more powerful than forcing a result. Faith that in every season He is working even when she's not speaking. She's not loud because she doesn't need to be. Her consistency speaks, her peace speaks, her fruit speaks. She has nothing to prove because everything about her already proves it. Her strength, her silence, her confidence, her calm, they all testify that she's been with God. And once you've been with God, you don't need to fight for your place. You just walk in what's already yours. You don't need to shout your value. You live it, breathe it, carry it, because the woman of prayer knows that proving herself to people is a distraction from trusting herself to God. Silence is not weakness, it's spiritual strategy. In a world addicted to noise, to reactions, to instant responses and loud opinions, silence becomes a discipline, a deliberate act of war against the distractions that try to pull you away from the presence of God. Silence doesn't mean surrender, and it certainly doesn't mean passivity. Silence is a position of power, a posture of wisdom, a tool for the spiritually mature. It's the woman who knows when to speak and when to stay still that truly understands the weight of her authority. The one who has discerned that not every moment calls for words, not every attack demands a reply, not every situation is worthy of a response. She's learned that sometimes the greatest warfare is done in stillness. That the real strength is in knowing when to pause, to wait, to let God work in ways she can't. Her silence is not ignorance, it's intentional. It's not because she has nothing to say, it's because she knows what saying it would cost. And she's wise enough to know that sometimes silence protects what's sacred. There's strategy in holding peace when others expect conflict. There's strategy in staying grounded when others are shaking. There's a divine clarity that only comes when the noise around you fades and you can hear God clearly in the quiet. Her silence is covered in prayer, clothed in discernment, guarded by wisdom. She has trained herself to resist the urge to speak from emotion, to respond in anger, to defend what God has already covered. She knows the battle is the Lord's, and her silence is not her disengaging, it's her positioning. She's letting God do what only He can do. She's letting heaven speak where her words would fall flat. She's letting peace be her protector, and trust be her testimony. The enemy doesn't know what to do with a woman like this. He's used to provoking reactions, used to people responding in the flesh, but she's quiet, still, anchored, and in that anchoring, she's not just surviving, she's advancing. She's gaining strength while others are wasting theirs in arguments. She's growing roots while others are chasing relevance. Her strategy is to abide, to trust, to move when God says move, and to wait when He says wait. She doesn't need the last word because she already has the final promise. She doesn't chase closure from people because she knows God finishes what He starts. In a world that equates volume with influence, she understands that authority doesn't always shout. It often whispers. And when you've walked long enough with God, you realize that some of the loudest victories come in the quietest places, in the moments when you chose not to respond, in the times you didn't fight back, in the seasons you chose prayer over pettiness, worship over worry, silence over self-defense. That's spiritual strategy. That's warfare rooted in wisdom. She's not afraid of being misunderstood. She's not concerned with being misjudged, because her validation doesn't come from those watching. It comes from the one leading. She's not building her life on what others think. She's building it on what God said. And when you build on the Word, you don't need to speak on every wave. You just stand, you just trust, you just remain faithful, even when nothing around you makes sense. That's the power of strategic silence. It gives space for God to do the talking. It allows the Holy Spirit to be the interpreter. It invites heaven into the situation instead of feeding the fire. She knows that silence can be strength when it's partnered with prayer, that quiet can be a weapon when it's anchored in truth, that stillness can be a storm to the enemy when it's backed by the presence of God. She doesn't need to be reactive because she's already received the revelation. She doesn't need to be impulsive because she's rooted in purpose. Her quietness is not her withdrawing. It's her watching, waiting, warring in the spirit while the world looks for weakness. What others see as hesitation, God calls strategy. What others interpret as retreat, God calls wisdom. She's not pulling back, she's tuning in. She's not absent, she's aligned. And in that alignment, she hears things others miss. She discerns shifts before they happen. She responds from overflow instead of from emptiness. Because she hasn't been wasting her voice, she's been storing it for when it counts. She hasn't been shouting to be seen, she's been sitting with the one who sees it all. Silence isn't the absence of strength, it's the restraint of it. It's knowing you could speak, but you don't have to. It's understanding that not every battlefield requires your sword. Some require your surrender. Not surrender to defeat, but surrender to divine timing, to God's orchestration, to His covering, and that kind of silence, that kind of strategy, that's what makes her dangerous in the spirit. Not because she's silent out of fear, but because she's silent out of power. Her identity is built on purpose, not public approval. She doesn't need the applause of people to validate who she is because she already knows who she is in God. She doesn't walk into rooms looking for permission to exist or speak. She carries herself with the quiet authority of someone who has been assigned, not approved. The world constantly pushes the idea that recognition defines worth, but she lives by a higher truth. She understands that her purpose was placed in her before anyone had an opinion about her. Her value isn't up for negotiation, and her confidence isn't rooted in compliments or confirmation from others. It's rooted in the voice of the one who called her, formed her, and appointed her. She no longer asks, "Do they like me?" She now asks, "Am I being faithful?" She has traded performance for purpose, popularity for presence, and affirmation for assignment. Her identity is not wrapped up in how many people follow her, but in how closely she follows God. When others chase platforms, she chooses obedience. When others seek to be seen, she seeks to be sent. She's not building a brand. She's building a legacy of faith, character, and integrity, and that kind of foundation can't be shaken by shifting opinions or temporary trends. She knows what it's like to be overlooked, underestimated, misunderstood. But instead of letting those experiences define her, she let them refine her. She allowed God to shape her identity through quiet seasons of transformation. In the places where she felt unseen, she became deeply known by God. In the moments where she felt invisible to others, she was being developed in the secret place, and now she walks with a peace that can't be explained and a strength that can't be duplicated, because she didn't skip the process. She didn't build herself on approval. She let God write her identity in the dark, and now she shines with purpose in the light. She is secure not because life has been easy, but because she knows what anchors her. She's not swayed by opinions because she's not driven by them. She doesn't need the validation of the crowd when she's walking in the confidence of her calling. That calling may not always make sense to others, but it doesn't have to. It wasn't given to them. It was whispered to her in prayer, confirmed through trials, strengthened in silence, and that makes her walk with a calmness the world can't understand, a peace that surpasses performance, a grace that doesn't require constant explanation. She has learned that purpose makes you focused. It keeps you grounded when others are drifting. It reminds you who you are when life tries to make you question everything. Purpose speaks louder than approval. It reminds her why she started when it would be easier to quit. It calls her higher when others try to pull her into gossip, drama, or distraction. She has learned that not every battle is hers to fight. Not every room is hers to enter. Not every opportunity is meant to be chased. Because when you're walking in purpose, God will open the right doors and close the wrong ones. And you don't have to prove anything to anyone. Her confidence is not arrogance. It's alignment. It's walking in step with God, knowing that what He says about her matters more than anything people could ever say. She's not trying to become someone. She's discovering daily who she already is in Christ. She doesn't chase identity in titles, in attention, or in what she can produce. She lives from identity, not for it. That's why she doesn't panic when people misunderstand her, leave her, or try to diminish her, because she knows her worth isn't up for debate. The applause of people is temporary, but the purpose of God is eternal. She's built her life on something that lasts, and that kind of foundation gives her the strength to walk away from what doesn't serve her purpose. She doesn't hold onto things, titles, or relationships that are out of season. She trusts that God's plan for her is better than anything she could force on her own. And because of that, she's free. Free to grow, to evolve, to walk boldly in rooms where she doesn't need to be the loudest voice to carry the most impact. When others try to define her by what she does, she reminds herself of who she is. She is chosen, set apart, called. Her identity was never meant to be built on shifting ground, but on the solid rock of God's truth. And when you live from that place, you no longer live to be seen. You live to serve, you no longer live to be liked. You live to be faithful, you no longer live to impress. You live to obey, that's what separates her. That's what makes her powerful. That's what makes her dangerous to the enemy. Because when a woman knows who she is in God, no lie, no loss, no rejection can shake her. Thank you.